know that you can do more, that you must do more, that the world, quite honestly, in this place, in this space, are depending on us. We have the fortitude, we have the strength, we have the ability to set the goals, we have the ability to set the tone. Don't lose this moment. Learn all that you can, do all that you can, and know that there are women like my wonderful women in the Assembly, women in the Senate. By the way, we are still less than 30%. We are still less than 30% in both the Assembly and in the Senate. So understand that we need you. So seize your power, reclaim your seat, make the most out of this weekend, because we will demand the most out of all of us, and only us can give that power. So thank you so much. Enjoy your workshop, and I want to thank all the panelists for being here and taking time out to share your knowledge. Thank you so very much, ladies.
Another round of applause to the Senator Stewart Cousins, and she will be the majority leader. I also want to recognize, again from Manhattan, Senator Marisol Alcantara. Yay, where's Marisol? Yay. Thank you, Senator. We also want to recognize my sister from the Bronx, Councilmember Vanessa Gibson. Yay. I also want to recognize, I saw the mighty red come in. Where's my Deltas at? Woo! Okay, in all fairness, AKAs, where are you? All one. Okay, Zetas, where are you? You're not a sorority, kid, come on. And now to our panel. Oh, and we've just been joined by the president of the City Council in Mount Vernon, my very good friend, Councilmember Lisa Copeland. So we have three very powerful women who are about to present to you. It's really all about empowerment. And it's who she is. She's responsible for the march right after the election of number 45, the most racist, the misogynist, the anti-immigrant, the one who has provided hate and bigotry all throughout our country. I argue he is totally illegitimate, but this sister stood up, ladies and gentlemen, Carmen Perez! And then my sister, who organized bodega workers and organized the Muslim community in Brooklyn, standing up against this backdrop of hatred and bigotry against those who simply come to our country seeking economic prosperity. This sister organized them in Brooklyn and in all 5 boroughs. I admire her so much because she believes in building bridges and not walls. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for my sister Debbie, Dr. Debbie Almantasa. And because we recognize that women in power should not just be in an elective office, they should be in a number of offices all throughout our state and all throughout our nation. And someone who understands that the power of education is the power to overcome all obstacles. Education is the great equalizer. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our Regent, Catherine Fisher Collins, the Board of Regents from the 8th Judicial District. Give it up. And so we're going to allow our panelists to say a few words. Let's begin with the fabulous and fierce Carmen Perez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So first and foremost, I want to recognize all you women that are here. You are what inspires me every single day. And, you know, a little bit about myself. I work for a man by the name of Harry Belafonte, and I've been in my field for the past 23 years. I initially started working in criminal justice reform after that builds a national movement to end child incarceration, as well as the co-founder of Justice League NYC. And, you know, when I think about women of color reclaiming their seat at the table, there has, at times, not been a seat for us. And therefore, we have to create our own tables. And so for me, it's really important not only that I create a table where I could sit and I could thrive, but that I also bring other people along to stand in solidarity with me, people that don't necessarily look like me, but maybe are impacted by the same issue. And so all the years of organizing and sleeping on benches in Little Rock, Arkansas, and learning from the Little Rock Nine and staying on floors in Columbus, Ohio, and working with young people to stop violence led me to being one of the 4 national co-chairs of the Women's March on Washington. Not because I needed another title or another position, because I was already the executive director, had just come off the cuff of expanding to California and building Justice League California, and going back to my neighborhood that I had left 20-something years ago because it was too painful, not only because of the loss of my sister, but because my family members were being swallowed by the criminal justice system and were being impacted by violence, gang and gun violence. And so for me, instead of staying in where I lived, I went away to college and I studied psychology. But I always kept my eyes on the prize. And the prize was to make sure that I was building the beloved community that Dr. King talked about. And so for me, when I think about the Women's March and I think about why I participated and actually led, was because I felt it was my responsibility to ensure that the most marginalized communities were at the center. Because I wanted to make sure that my community, whether I represented the Latino community, the incarcerated community, the violence prevention community, was also sitting at the table. Because oftentimes we get asked to sit at the table, but we don't get asked to necessarily participate in a leadership role. And not only was I there as somebody who was gonna lead, we brought our friends along. Linda Sarsour, who was my sister in the movement. Tamika Mallory and I accepted the call, who has been fighting in this state for so long around gun violence. And we were gonna make sure that not only did we make room for you all to participate, but that we were gonna take one for the team, because oftentimes people were saying, this is a white ladies' march, right? How many of y'all said that? Let's just keep it a buck. But we took one for the team. And the reason we took one for the team, because we could have let them have their little white lady march. But we wanted to remind them that their feminism didn't look like our feminism. And actually, feminism, if we really look up the definition of feminism, it was founded in the late 1800s by a French philosopher named Charles. And so, of course, their feminism had a little bit of patriarchy, this control, right? But if we really understood what our feminism was, and that was something that people like Audre Lorde, who really introduced Black feminism, that then allowed for women like myself, who was a Chicana feminist, to be a part of the feminist movement, and also made it intersectional. We were gonna make sure that the movement that we were a part of and creating was also inclusive and intersectional. And so I want to remind you all of the words of Coretta Scott King, because for me, it was what allowed me to see my role in this movement. She said, "Women, if the soul of the nation is to be saved, I believe that you must become its soul." And so I want to remind all of you that you have the power to change the unjust conditions in your community. Because Superman and Wonder Woman, they're not coming. Grace Lee Bogg reminded us, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. It's not the person next to you. And you know, it'd be great to build solidarity and say, brothers and sisters, let's really work with one another, right? Because I know that's what I do, and I want to recognize my team, Justice League NYC, because without them, I wouldn't be sitting here. They allow me to do this work. I also have to recognize the women that I wake up every single day fighting against injustice, and that's Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour. I gotta recognize them, because even though they're not in this room, their spirit travels with me. And I also wanna remind you that this new movement that people are talking about, it's not really new. We're only building off the American Indian movement, the Black Liberation Movement, the United Farm Worker Movement, the Civil Rights Movement. To have somebody like Harry Belafonte, who was turning 91 on March 1st, be a mentor and continue every single day waking up saying, what are we gonna do today, is inspirational. Yes. It doesn't allow me to complain about how I'm having morning sickness. This morning I couldn't get out of bed. I was like, Lord Jesus, thank God for mothers, because I do not know how people do it. And I guess I'm announcing that I am pregnant.
Oh!
Which is another blessing. But I gotta give it up to the mothers. Oh my God, thank you. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your mothering. Thank you for waking up every single day and reminding us of our worth when we didn't believe in ourselves. And so what does that mean for women like myself? What does that mean for the children that are looking for us to make sure that we are passing laws that benefit their lives? What happened recently in Florida is not new to our communities,
That's right.
particularly black and brown. And so what I welcome us to do is I welcome us to find our lane. What do you do well, and how could you actually contribute that to the work and whatever you find your work to be? I also know that a closed mouth does not get fed. That's something my father taught me, and he said it in Spanish, and I remember I didn't really understand it when I was younger. But we can't necessarily just sit here complaining to our neighbors about what people are not doing. Because what is the sacrifice, and what are you gonna do to make sure that your community is being advocated for? I know many times we've gone to many of the women here, and we've gotten on conference calls with legislators at 2 in the morning because we wanted to make sure that we raised the age right in New York State. Our children deserved not to be locked up and tried at 16 and 17-year-olds as adults. But there were compromises that were made. But for us, people stood with us. And again, if we sat there and only talked about the problems, then we only focus on the problems and never come to solutions. Right. I played ball for 16 years, and our role and our goal was to win championships. And my coach was saying, if you're here to spectate, you gotta stand on the sidelines. But if you're here to win a game, then get in the game. And so I wanna remind you of that. And to also think about, one of the things that worked for us is that we're grounded in the ideology of Dr. King, which is Kingian nonviolence. Yes. One of the 6 principles of nonviolence is attack the forces of evil, not people doing evil. Do you all know what that means? What does that mean? So it would have been easy for the Women's March to focus on number 45, Donald Trump, red man, orange man, whatever they call him. It would have been easy, because that is focusing on one person. But you get rid of Donald Trump, somebody had to vote for him. He just lifted the sheets off the people that were racist in this country.
That's right.
So it's not only about attacking the person, it's about attacking the forces of evil. The forces of evil are the institutionalized racism that exists in this country. It's the xenophobia, it's the homophobia. It's about making sure that not only was it us that were showing up, but that we were creating entry points for people to get involved. The Women's March was organized in 10 weeks by not only 4 national co-chairs, 70 national organizers, 400 state coordinators, and 90 global leaders. That is building collective power. That is making sure that you kept your eyes on the prize. We were able to bring out 5.2 million people. Now, if you participated, I want to give you all a round of applause, and I want to thank you, because we worked hard in those 10 weeks to make sure that we created entry points for people to get involved. And so again, I want to thank you for always standing with us, but I also want to remind you all of your greatness. And I want to especially remind you women that it's going to take us. It's really going to take us to come together and build collective power. And I'm going to continue to wake up every single day, whether I have morning sickness or not, because I'm sure I'm going to get over it. And I'm going to wake up fighting injustice. And I'm going to think about all of you, because I carry you in my heart. Thank you.
A round of applause for my sister, Mama Perez. What a blessing that she's going to give birth to a child who's going to lead us forward. Another round of applause to this amazing woman. Before we go on with the rest of our panelists, we have been joined Sister Assemblywoman Latrice Walker!
Man, this is always a beautiful and momentous occasion. On behalf of Speaker Carl Hastie, I welcome you to the People's House. This is what we call our beloved chamber here. And my chambermates, my colleagues, my sisters, assembly members, Kimberly Jean-Pierre and Alicia Hyman, congratulations to you on a successful Women's Power Luncheon. And to each and every one of you who are here today, we find that it is very important for us to empower ourselves. We know that there's a beautiful song that teaches us to speak over ourselves. Somebody told me there was some church folk in the house. So we have seen what our vote can do in Alabama. We have seen what it's like when women band together through my sisters. Of course, I see Mama Carmen Perez here. And she talked about that morning sickness, so let me tell you, vitamin B6 helped me through. And to all of our illustrious panelists here today, but I wanted to leave you with a litany of truth. This is an ode to Black women in politics, celebrating sisters, grabbing the gavel. Oh God, creator of heaven and earth, we come before you today as we have so many times before, recognizing you as our ultimate and sovereign Lord who guides all nations, rulers, and people. With holy reverence, we honor the exceptional women whose faith, hope, love, and courage cultivated and developed us into the women we are today, fully prepared to grab the gavel of power. Despite the many dangers, toils, and snares they endured, together we grab the gavel of power. We are thankful for and remember the ways our mothers, grandmothers, and other women in our lives taught us to love and to trust you, the God of our weary years and silent tears who has brought us a mighty long way. Oh God, fill us with your matchless love and redeeming holiness. Let us never forget that every woman was created in God's image by your loving hand with limitless possibilities for greatness. Remind us that as your creation, our Blackness is a beautiful physical representation of the divinity and dignity you breathe in us and is worthy of love and support. Together, we grab the gavel of power. We pause to remember the strength and wisdom and fearlessness of women like Sojourner Truth, whose bold leadership helped pioneer abolition, women's rights, voting rights, freedom, and equality for all Americans. Her courage inspired women like Coretta Scott King, Fannie Lou Hamer, Dorothy Height, Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Jordan, Maya Angelou, and First Lady Michelle Obama. Birthed in us is the dream or vision of Black women as presidents, governors, mayors, congresswomen in the spirit of Sojourner Truth, whose Ain't I a Woman spirit propels us to move from vision to reality. God, let us stand and wrap arms of love around the mothers of Trayvon Martin and Jordan Davis and Michael Brown and other mothers of unarmed Black men who were cut down by the system that does not love Black life as you do. Let us grab the gavel of power by accepting the call to serve our communities as governors, mayors, congresswomen, and presidents. We pause to reflect on the many ways our sisters have been degraded and dehumanized over time, including our ancestors who were enslaved, Boko Haram attack on our girls, women who are victimized by human and sex trafficking, police brutality, not just against our men, but against us as women, domestic violence against women in and out of the sports arena, and disparity in pay for women of color. We choose to act proactively, recognizing that the inhumane and unjust treatment of our sisters is actually an opportunity to serve you, oh God, within the political sphere, the community sphere, in our congregations, in our schools, and all over the world. Help us remember our sisters like Sojourner Truth. May their lives and legacies remind us to fearlessly utilize and generously share the abundant gifts and talents you have bestowed upon us, so that our daughters, granddaughters, great-granddaughters, and all of our descendants will boldly and bravely go where generations before them did not go. In the spirit of Sojourner Truth, help us to leave this mountain of sister-to-sister dialogue, encouragement, and strategy, and return to the valleys of our cities, more committed to act on justice's behalf. Today, we celebrate our sisters by bringing together our collective voices in the harmonious melody of God's love. We choose love instead of hate, justice over injustice, compassion and understanding over mean-spiritedness and ignorance. And a voice of right over might, we commit to speak boldly until every sister from every circumstance has a voice represented at the decision-making table and influences the pinnacles of power. We know that with you, oh God, nothing is impossible. As we leave this place to heed the call of justice, as we grab the gavel of power, let us sojourn together in truth. God bless you, and thank you for sharing with us today.
A round of applause. A round of applause to the chairwoman of the Black and Puerto Rican and Asian Caucus Weekend, Latrice Walker. Timothy Kennedy. Is Buffalo in the house? Is Washington Heights in the house? There they go. Come on, si se puede. Where are my Dominicans? Come on, make some noise. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, a fierce assemblywoman from Washington Heights who's making a name for herself. Where is she? Assemblywoman Carmen de la Rosa. Standing up on behalf of immigrants, standing up on behalf of those who are vilified in this city, and I'm so glad that she joined me recently again as we stood outside of a courthouse with 3 district attorneys, because you know ICE immigrants, ICE agents are in our courtrooms detaining and deporting individuals for relatively minor offenses and in some cases no crime at all. And so Assemblywoman and so many members of my colleagues are standing with me to say no to ICE and no to these mass deportations. A round of applause again to Assemblywoman De La Rosa. And the one district attorney who stood with me, and she stood with those legal aid attorneys who walked out in the great borough of the Bronx. She is a history maker herself, and she's a proud graduate of Howard University Law School. Ladies and gentlemen, our district attorney from the BX, Darcel Clark. And then there's my sister from Brooklyn who represents downtown Brooklyn and parts of Park Slope, who has been a fierce advocate for those who are invisible, those who unfortunately are suffering from mental illness. She's been an attorney with me, working on a wide range of fronts. Ladies and gentlemen, Assemblywoman Joanne Simon. And then lastly, as I turn it back to our panel, someone whose shoulders we all stand on, someone who created this luncheon, someone who has birthed more elected officials in this state, someone who has stood up for prisoners, someone who said that prisoners should have their babies in the cells with them, someone who said that we should not separate families, someone who's been a strong advocate, someone who stood in the vanguard and spoke truth to power before anyone knew it. Ladies and gentlemen, my senator, my shero, Senator Velma Montgomery. You could do better than that. 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 When they were shackling inmates who were giving birth, it was Senator Montgomery who said, remove those handcuffs from those individuals who are giving birth. That's my senator, and I'll be damned if anyone who thinks that they are so drunk with power that they're going to primary her. I say we are with Senator Montgomery. Okay, and now back to our panel. And now I give it back to the sister who's building bridges and not walls, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Debbie Almantasa.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and greetings, my sisters and brothers. I have to say that this greeting has possibly been invoked in this room today for the very first time. When I received the invitation to come to this luncheon and workshop, I was very emotional. 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 I was very to know that I've been invited to the assembly chambers of the state of New York, a little girl from Yemen coming to the state assembly chambers to speak about her journey and her struggles. My husband and I always joke about us being two little kids from Yemen, making it in the big city, being people like everybody else, but struggling to make a name for our community. So it is truly an honor and privilege to be here amongst you, to serve on this panel with these dynamic sisters, to actually have Public Advocate Tish James be our moderator, to know all the incredible sisters in the Assembly and Senate that have come before us, paving the way for us, is truly an honor and privilege for me today. It is a very difficult time for members of my community. We all know that the Orange Man in the White House has made life very difficult for many communities. As a member of the Yemeni American community and being a member of one of the banned countries, I cannot begin to tell you how devastating it is to see a country that has actually raised me from the age of 3 and educated me and offered me everything I possibly can want in the world, to see it turn on the very people that have built this nation. I know, though, with clarity and understanding, that what has happened in this past election is only temporary, because we sitting here are going to change the discourse of what is happening. We are going to change it by continuing to do what we are doing, and that is coalescing and organizing and coming together to make sure that all communities of color are united and working together to make a difference in our country. When I look back at all of the things that I've done in the last 27 years, I shock myself. I shock myself because there were so many obstacles before me, such as gender bias in my community and public education, the racial and religious bigotry, the backlash and discrimination in the aftermath of September 11th, the detentions and deportations of Arabs and Muslims and South Asians under the Patriot Act, the registry of Muslim men under the NSEERS program, the insensitivity of the state education department issuing a state test on a Muslim holiday, the NYPD Muslim surveillance program, the stop and frisk program, the protests against the establishment of mosques, the Right to Know Act, to the modern day Muslim ban struggle for our communities to live with respect and dignity. We must continue to look at what has happened in the past and learn from it. I have to say, with all of these challenges, I met them with clarity and understanding of who I was and where I came from, and what my responsibility in the world was. One thing that we must remember is to remember our history and where we came from. When we are grounded in that, we will be able to serve the very people that we seek to serve. I knew I was a part of many communities, from the Black and Latino kids I taught, and knew back then that Black lives mattered. To defending the rights of Arabs and Muslims and South Asians through the weekly protest and the aftermath of September 11th for 6 months. To assisting men registering at 26 Federal Plaza and never returning in cases to their families. To addressing the backlash and discrimination through education, where I spoke at churches and synagogues across the city, establishing escort systems for Muslim families who didn't feel safe in the aftermath of September 11th, and to pushing at the highest level of our city the need to educate New Yorkers about Arabs and Muslims in New York City through the inauguration of Arab Heritage Week, followed by pushing for the Muslim holidays with a robust coalition of multi-faith organizations, unions, and communities across the city. Today in New York, the American Muslim community feels a sense of respect and acknowledgement and inclusion. It is truly amazing to see how we came together as a city and saw the need to offer the 1 million children in New York City the opportunity to have their peers, which 1 in every 8 students is Muslim. And not just stopping there, but created the first Arabic dual language public school in the United States at a great cost to my safety and the well-being of my family. Followed by pushing for the Muslim holidays, as I mentioned earlier. I knew that then that our youth were the solution to end the hate if we have them at the table and have a voice, then we will see a better world. The sad and unfortunate thing after creating the Khalil Gibran International Academy, I did not get the chance to see my school open due to the cowardice Mayor Bloomberg, who removed me from my position. But Bloomberg had no idea what he was in store for. He didn't realize that I was an organizer and a bridge builder and very well connected across the city. The entire city of New York raged from my abrupt removal. Within a week's time, hundreds of people protested, demanding my reinstatement, and lawyers competed to represent me. He had no idea I had so many communities of different ethnic, racial, and religious backgrounds standing up for me because I stood up for their rights and all the intersectional work. I will never forget the day I stood on the steps of City Hall in New York City with elected officials and organizers and faith leaders calling Mayor Bloomberg out. One of those very people who stood by my side and who I will be forever indebted to is Tish James. She knew the importance of what it meant to stand in solidarity, and she knew when there was a grave injustice, we have to stand. Her standing with me gave me so much power and hope and made me realize that I was not alone in this struggle. That day, I also announced filing a lawsuit and a claim with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And in 2010, my sisters and brothers, I was vindicated. I spoke truth to power to what happened to me. But let us be sure to know that what happened to me was not just happening to me. I was simply in the center of a geopolitical battle against Islam and Muslims in this country. And I knew then, and I continue to know now, never to take what is happening personally, but to know that this is something that is happening to us collectively. And if we are going to undo Islamophobia, then we must first undo racism in this country. Racism of African Americans, Native Americans, and all communities of color. When we see our struggle as a collective and we see what is impacting all of us, we can make a difference. After the battle with Bloomberg came the New York Police Department Muslim surveillance, which we met head-on with protest and a major lawsuit that was settled in 2016. Now, as I said earlier, a modern-day demon is the orange man in the White House. He thought banning me and my community was going to be easy. Boy, was he in for a big surprise. We shut down 1,000 Yemeni bodegas across the 5 boroughs. We shut them down in 4 days. We didn't have 6 to 10 weeks. We had 4 days. We utilized social media to get that story out and get everybody prepared. We identified people in the community to tell their stories of how this ban was impacting them. We were able to get over 6,000 people to Brooklyn Borough Hall. And you must wonder, why Brooklyn Borough Hall? Brooklyn Borough Hall was the home of the Yemeni community in New York City. When Yemenis first migrated to New York 80 or 90 years ago, Borough Hall was the place they made home. They opened their stores, their restaurants, and made it the place to be. And when I told this to Eric Adams, Borough President Eric Adams, he was very touched. And I explained to him, if you go to Yemen or any Yemeni community across the United States and they ask you where you live in New York, and you say Borough Hall, everybody knew what Badajoz was, because it became an icon for the Yemeni community. So on that very day, February 2nd, 2017, where I thought we were going to just have 2,000 Yemeni Americans come out, we had over 6,000 Yemeni Americans out there. My fellow brothers and sisters brought out American flags that I didn't even know existed in size. They brought the Yemeni flags, they waved them, and they kept chanting, USA, USA. And I was wondering to myself, what is it about this USA chant? And one of my brothers reached over and whispered in my ear and said, they are claiming this as their home, and this is the slogan that they feel they need to claim. It was the most powerful and moving experience to see them doing what they were doing and really exercising their political right that very moment. You see, the Yemeni American community, in all of its time in New York, was a sleeping giant. Never caring about politics, never caring about anything except for raising their families, making money, and being good to their neighbors. But they realized that that wasn't enough. And today we've been able to register hundreds of Yemeni Americans, and we birthed an organization called the Yemeni American Merchants Association out of the bodega strike. This organization now, sisters and brothers, is working to empower Yemeni owners, bodega owners, and merchants, and providing them assistance with immigration issues and empowering them to have a voice in New York City. To date, we've already filed 2 lawsuits, one on behalf of the diversity visa recipients who were actually given diversity visas in 2017 but not permitted to come due to the ban, and that's still pending. And the second is against the Muslim ban, which just this week we had a victory in the 4th Circuit Court. But is the struggle over yet? No, it is not. We are waiting for the Supreme Court ruling. And we hope and pray that it will be the ultimate victory to save our country from going back in the ugly history that we have seen in our country. So the fight continues for a just and equitable society, my sisters and brothers. And I want you to know that my liberation is contingent on the liberation of my Black and brown sisters and brothers, immigrant communities, and the LGBT community, and any community that is feeling under siege and marginalized. So I leave you with one message, and that is we need to show up for one another and speak up for one another. leaving here today, share with your family members, your neighbors, and your communities what took place here. We must continue this, and we must change the course of our country. We owe it to who? To our very children. Every day when I look at my granddaughter, Sophie, who's a year and a half old, and I think about what the world is like today, I do not want her to grow up feeling afraid and scared to be in America. I want her to grow up feeling a sense of respect and admiration and feeling like she belongs, which each and every one of us here is entitled to do. So I thank you all. God bless.
One of your guest speakers sitting between two dynamic panelists. And I also thank the organizers of this event for asking me to come in and talk a little bit about what I'm doing as a regent from Western New York. You've already introduced my senator, Senator Tim Kennedy, and I'm so pleased that he's here with me this morning. He is one of the individuals who's responsible for me becoming a regent, along with Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes. I don't think they knew at the time that they presented me to become a regent that it would take 245 years to elect a female and an African-American female to this wonderful, wonderful organization that I'll talk a little bit more about, the Board of Regents. The Board of Regents had mostly white males, mostly businessmen, mostly rich people, no educators, and now we have a Board of Regents who are predominantly females, never heard of in its existence, educators, because most of them have been, and I'm not, putting the lawyers down, but most of them were lawyers. However, we now have superintendents and individuals like myself who've been in education for years, working on behalf of the children in this state. I was very concerned when I first joined because we're continuously hearing about No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, and now we have another program called ESSA, Every Student Succeed Act. It's another reform. But I'm so pleased to be a part of it because it's going to hold us accountable in New York State, and we're going to have to equitably distribute the resources that come to us each year from the federal government, that $1.6 billion. We have submitted a plan already to the federal government, and we've outlined some of the things that we feel are very important. And one of them is making sure that we distribute the resources to all the school districts, especially those school districts who do not have the resources to manage all of the things that they have to do for the children. You've probably heard about the MBK program. That's the program that came out of the Obama administration, where we're working along with African American and Latino males. While serving a few years back on the New York State Commission of Corrections, when I would walk through some of those prisons and see all those young men and all the young women who were there locked up, you would talk to them. Most of them did not have a high school diploma. They were there lingering in that system. Under ESSA, we're going to make sure that we have a coordinator in each one of the school districts to work along with those children who go back and forth between the juvenile justice system and the district, to make sure that they get their homework, to make sure that we stay connected to them, make sure that when they come back into the community that they don't go back. That recidivism is horrible amongst our children and amongst our women, who is also out there attempting to manage their homes as well as get their children educated. And so many of them are incarcerated. Thank you. With the MBK program and the money we got, I think we received $16 million this past year, and coming up, I think, close to $20 million. We're able to fund programs within our school districts that work with those young men, getting them interested in education. One of the programs we did, and I'm going to talk about Buffalo because that's where I'm from, okay? We had this summer a male academy. We went out and found 100 men to line the streets. We brought our young men in on school buses. And as they walked out of that school bus, down that aisle, those African-American men shook their hand, told them that we're here to help you. Call upon us. We will work with you. You see, you can't be someone that you don't see. We wanted them to see lawyers and doctors and businessmen. And so through that academy, we again was able to help them to look to the future because they very rarely saw African-American men except those that the media put on television for us to see. And they're usually young men in handcuffs. They don't see the young men and those young people in Niagara Falls High School that are making prostheses in their lab, hand prostheses, and giving those hand prostheses to third world countries where people in those countries don't have the laws to protect their children like we do. And they donated those hand prostheses to those third world countries. They don't see those kinds of things. Unfortunately, the media, we need the media. However, sometimes the media is not always kind to our children. They don't show them the kinds of things that we want them to see. With the MBK program in Niagara Falls, we had our fathers bring their young children, the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds to school and sit in the cafeteria and have meals with them. Then we talk to them about being a responsible dad. That's the monies that comes to New York State. That's the money that comes from the legislature. That's the money that we hope will continue to expand on these programs. I'm going to talk in this one because that one keeps going out. Well, the programs that we have, we're going to continue to expand them. But let me all say to you, find out who your regent is, call them, let them know that you're interested in what's going on in education. If there's something that you don't see that's happening in your districts, let them know. It's very important because in 5 years, we're going to be really impacted by the teacher shortage. And we're talking about trying to get diversity now in our schools. And in 5 years, it's in critical condition now. One of the programs I'm working with Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes on is Growing Your Own, looking at all of our teaching assistants that are in our classrooms, those many who are managing the classrooms, who know the curriculum and who know the children. We're building a career path for them. Call your regents, let them know how you feel about that program. Now, we're talking about diversity, so diversity will come through our teaching assistants, through the few males, and we're trying to recruit as many males as we possibly can. This is going to be a small demonstration project there in Buffalo. However, the law will be there. Hopefully, we'll continue to fund it, and we'll bring the diversity into the classrooms. We'll bring women. Our profession, teaching, is primarily women, but they do know the children. These people we have in our city sent out a survey of our 1,300 teachers, teaching assistants. It came back. We had 39 with bachelor's degree, 6 with master's degrees, and even some that had doctorates. So we need to look to the people we have in our districts, bring them into the fold, educate them, bring the diversity in our classrooms, but not only there. Let's not just stop with the teaching assistants. We need to look throughout the district. There's the bus drivers, there's the kitchen help. You know, a lot of these people do not have the opportunity to go to school. So we're trying to plan a program for them. I'd like for you to find out who your teaching assistant, who your region is, how many teaching assistants you have in your community. Push for them. We're working with our teachers assistant union. We're working with the colleges. I worked for Empire State College for 25 years as a professor. And we're giving them college learning credits for the years that they've spent out there in many capacities. So it won't take them as long if we can get that learning evaluated and give them the credit. So we're working with Empire State College, we're working along with Buffalo State College, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to do the same thing in other locations. I want to recognize Ruth Hassel Thompson as well, because she was also one of the senators who seconded my motion, the motion to become a region. Thank you, Ruth Hassel Thompson, for your support, and also for my Senator Tim Kennedy, and also, I don't think she's in the room, but I would be remiss if I didn't say Crystal Peoples-Stokes.
Thank you.
And thank you for your courteous attention. I have to sit down. I've been told my time is up. Thank you, ladies.
We want to thank the region. A round of applause. Woo! Y'all better give it up. Give it up. Give it up. When you deal with Agent Orange, she often sings the song, I'm about to lose my mind up in here, up in here. And then, my other beautiful sister who is exiting as we speak, the dynamo from Brooklyn, ladies and gentlemen, Assemblywoman Diana Richardson. We also have a number of judges. I want to thank all of you for, again, not forgetting that making right now our firmest pillar of government is in our courts. That's how we've been able to stop the madness. And so it's really critically important that we vote for judges, that we nominate judges, that we elect judges, particularly in the criminal justice system when we see so many people who are trapped up in a system which is unfair. So let me begin by recognizing Sharon Hudson from Supreme Court. Joanne Quinones from Supreme Court. Claudia Daniels Denise from Criminal Court in Brooklyn. Ellen Edwards, she's also a Brooklyn judge. I also want to recognize, my new sister. She comes out of Southeast Queens, which is the powerhouse. Ladies and gentlemen, Councilwoman Adrienne Adams. And if ever you want an opera singer, this woman can sing. No, not sing, she could sing. Yes. And then a brilliant and erudite woman from Brooklyn as well, who was taught by my president, President Barack Obama. This sister is now in the assembly. She got all A's when she was a student of Barack Obama. She's a fabulous woman. Ladies and gentlemen, Assemblywoman Tremaine Wright. And I also want to recognize District Leader Marjorie Velasquez for all that she has done as well in the great borough of Queens. And lastly but not leastly, I want to recognize Madeline Quintin McConney. I hope I said that right. She's a Commissioner of Human Services in Strong Isle in the town of Babylon. They're giving me more cards. Okay, so representing, do we have any individuals from Haiti? Ça passe? The Deputy Commissioner of Haiti or Deputy Corrections of Haiti's Bouval Jacques, are you here? I hope I said that right. Bertrand Snall and Pet Salute, they're all from Haiti. Welcome so much. And Fritznell Claude, ça passe! All right. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you, there's always, we recognize a lot of powerful men, right? But there's always a whisperer, a quiet and silent whisperer, someone who really speaks to that figure about issues that we care about. Issues such as reforming our criminal justice system, issues such as raising strong and smart and intelligent young girls, issues such as reforming our public education system, and a sister who has been talking a lot about mental illness when most of us are too embarrassed to talk about mental illness. I bring to you that whisperer in the city of New York, that powerful sister who is a partner in the city of New York. He gets all the credit, but the person who should get the credit is a woman of color. Ladies and gentlemen, our First Lady, Charlene McCray.
Thank you so much for being here today. You all look so good. I'm so happy to be in this room again. All this power, all this fierce beauty, brains. It's really amazing. I want to thank the hosts today for bringing together this group of women, the fierce and powerful women of color. And thank you again, Tish, for everything that you do and for moderating this gathering, this powerful gathering. You know, I don't have to tell you all that these are tumultuous times. It's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to be here with you. You make me feel good. I feel surrounded by my sisters. And as you know, there are many, many fights ahead, fights that we can't afford to lose. We have to stand up for our dreamers and our immigrant brothers and sisters. We've got to end the opioid epidemic and protect women's health care. We have to stand up for survivors of domestic violence. And we've got to battle that tax scam designed to undercut us, give all the money to the rich people so we have no money to take care of ourselves, right? And we must fight every attempt to strip away our rights and all of our protections, our safety net. Even in these turbulent times, turbulent and uncertain times, I know we can do it. I know we're up to the fight. And the faith I have in my sisters never wavers, never. Because I know we are not going to sit around admiring the problems that we have. Are we? No, we came here to take care of business. And I know what we can do when we all come together. I'm going to tell you about just one example. In December, I turned to my sisters to help create an outreach effort for mental health first aid. Now, I don't know if you all know about mental health first aid, but we compare it to CPR. You can recognize when somebody's in trouble and actually save a life or connect somebody to appropriate care. And we all grow up knowing what to do in certain kinds of emergencies, right? We know what to do when somebody's bleeding, right? We know what to do. Clean the wound, put on a Band-Aid, all of that. We know what to do if somebody's choking. Many of us know the Heimlich maneuver, but we don't know what to do if someone has a panic attack. We don't know what to do if somebody's drinking too much. We don't know what to do if someone's suffering from depression. And we know that that is so many of us. 1 in 5 is the number. 1 in 5 adults, 1 in 5 children suffers from some type of mental illness or substance abuse. And this is something that we all should be able to recognize and also respond to. We all have that capability, we all have that power, but we've got to know what we're doing. So this course in mental health first aid is available to anyone who lives in New York City that is, for free. Did I say free? Yes. Free. All right. So in December, I turned to my sisters, of course. My sisters are from 6 historic organizations: Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, Zeta Phi Beta. They're in the house. Sigma Gamma Rho, and Eastern District of the Lynx, Jack and Jill, I hope I mentioned everybody. But I got them? I got them, all right. This is not the first time they've stepped up, but this is the first time that they've worked with government to solve a huge problem. So, you know, they've marked our history by raising their voices in times of grave need. They've made huge sacrifices and won big victories. But now we're working together to solve a problem that affects every single one of us in this room. If not us, then our sisters or our brothers or somebody in our family. That's how intense this problem is. But I shouldn't even call it a problem because it's really more of a challenge. Because challenges can be overcome. Am I right? We can overcome a challenge. And we know that mental illness is a disease. It's a disease, and it is treatable. It's not a permanent state, but it's easier when we get it early. So together we created Sisters Thrive to teach Black women to be mental health helpers and healers. We'll be working with our brothers too. But we started here, and you know why. Because if we educate a woman, we educate a nation. In New York City, we are working to train 10,000 women and their friends and family members in mental health first aid. 10,000. And as I told you, this course helps you recognize what's going on, but also helps you to respond, be able to respond. If you live in New York City, the course is free, but it's available all over the state. All you have to do is go to Mental Health New York State, that's MHNYS.org. If you don't live in New York City, go to MHNYS.org. And I encourage everyone to check it out. To reach 10,000 is an ambitious goal. And we need all of our sisters to step up and help us get us there. We can't do it unless everyone here in this room is a part of the solution. There's a pledge card going around right now for you to sign. It looks like this. If you don't have one, please raise your hand. Anyone not have one? Okay, we'll get one over to you, right over there. And if you live outside of New York City, go to the website, mhnys.org. And today, if you'd like to learn more about Thrive, Sisters Thrive, Thrive NYC, everything that we're doing around mental health, I'll be talking today at 2 p.m. in Hearing Room A. I'll be at a panel on mental health disparities in the Black and Latino communities. I hope to see you there, but if you don't, still sign up for this or go online and look at Thrive NYC. Now, to conclude, there are two sacred duties that I want you all to pay attention to. Can you please take the hand of someone beside you? Brother, sister, doesn't matter who it is. Take somebody's hand. Close your eyes and repeat after me. I am a woman of accountability and growth. I am moving from extraordinary to exceptional. I listen to and support my sisters when she needs me most. I am my sister's keeper. All right, now open your eyes. Some of you, okay. Some of you might be thinking, how can I possibly take care of my sister when I'm just barely getting my life together, just barely taking care of myself? Well, that brings me to the other sacred duty that we have to remember. And you know how when you're on an airplane, they always tell you to put your air mask on first before you take care of your children or whoever's sitting next to you? Well, in the words of Audre Lorde, I want you to remember, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Whatever self-care looks like for you, please make it a priority in this coming year. We have so much to do. And the only way we can do it is if you are in good health. And when I say good health, I mean mental health and physical health. We need soldiers. We need soldiers who are ready to go. And we cannot succeed without you. We need you strong, healthy, wealthy would be good too, strong, healthy, and well. Do you hear me? Yes. You gonna take care of yourselves? Yes. All right, be well and thank you.
And now I bring back to the podium my two sisters, Assemblywoman Hyman and Assemblymember Jean-Pierre.
Good afternoon, ladies. Are you feeling empowered and motivated? Thank you on behalf of our co-chairs of the Subcommittee of Women of Color, Latoya Joyner and Maritza Davila. We bring greetings on behalf of them. Alicia Hyman and I are co-chairs of this beautiful and wonderful luncheon filled with beautiful women. And we are here to honor another beautiful, dynamic woman, a woman from New York City.
Good morning again. I think a lot of times in the conversation, we're always looking for sometimes the biggest title or the best title, but every person in this room, whether you are on your school board, if you're active in your chapter of your sororities, if you're a parent going to PTA meetings, and if you're a leader of a women's march, everyone has a role to play. And we should never diminish that, because just as the First Lady said, we are our sister's keeper. And many years ago, this room would never look like it does right now. I don't understand if you know how powerful this picture is that I'm looking at right now, where every seat in this room is filled by a woman and a woman of color. And speaking on that, we have to remember our leaders, because she played a pivotal role being the first city council speaker, woman of color, a Latina, to represent New York City. And although she is no longer in that seat, I know her greatest chapters will be written. So Melissa Mark-Viverito, if you could come up here. And if you haven't.
And we ask all members of the New York State Assembly and Senate to join us. Please join us. Tremaine, anyone from the Assembly or Senate, please join us. Joanne.
Now, we have a proclamation here, and I don't know if it was hard getting all the members to sign it, but this means a lot to us, because when it comes to those leadership roles, they aren't always dominated by women of color. So while you may see a lot of us in the chamber today, this is not how this room looks on a regular basis. Trust and believe. So we have to make sure we seize our moments and take our seats when necessary. So I'm going to read a lot of this because it's that important. Whereas, it is our, I need my glasses. Anybody got some readers? Whereas, it is our intent to recognize the work of individuals with a singular vision who effect enduring and positive change in their communities. And Melissa Mark-Viverito served as a member of the New York City Council. Wow. Everything is crystal clear now. City Council for 12 years, representing the 8th District, which includes El Barrio, East Harlem, and the South Bronx. She was the first person and woman of color to serve as Speaker of the City Council. She was the first person and woman of color to serve as the Speaker of the City Council. Former Speaker Mark-Viverito is also an outspoken advocate for local and national criminal justice reform. Under her leadership, the New York City Council initiated a citywide bail fund that assists low-income individuals in qualifying cases to post bail rather than spend time in jail awaiting trial. Former Speaker Mark-Viverito also continues to push for the use of summonses instead of arrest for certain low-level, nonviolent offenses, a policy shift that would decrease the volume of individuals detained and jailed unnecessarily. And the Women of Color Subcommittee of the New York State Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus recognized that in former Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito, we have an outstanding citizen one who is worthy of the esteem of the great state of New York, presented by all the members of color of the New York State Assembly and New York State Senate.